So yeah, I also ran into someone in the grocery store yesterday and was telling them about our podcast, Storytelling on the Plains. And I said the neat thing about this series we're starting to write is I have the time to tell it and tell it the way that I want to tell it. So today on Storytelling on the Plains, we're going to start, I think it's a 6-part series. I'm pretty sure. Got to go and count again. I had written a story many years ago, like more than a decade ago. I think it was 2014, about the theaters in the Panhandle. Mm-hmm. And I was limited to 1,200 words.
Oh, that's not a lot.
Yeah. This story today that we're going to do is 2,500 words, just on this one theater. So that's the neat thing about having your own podcast. You can write as much as you want about it. So you can tell
all day.
Yes, and you can tell the whole story and some little tidbits that never would have made it into the paper, but add to the story. So for those of you who don't know, the Panhandle in Nebraska is rich in theater history. There were theaters everywhere. There still are a few, not as many as there used to be. And most people don't realize how much entertainment has been out here over the years. And we're going to go over the last century because this first one, 1916, was when it opened. So we're a little more than a century past when it had opened. And it's just always been here. We've always found a way. Even during COVID, we still found a way to have our theaters and keep everybody safe. So most people who drive through the little towns out here in western Nebraska, they might stop at a building and go, oh, that looks kind of cool, and keep going, but they don't really know just what happened in that building, what went on in that building, and the rich history of just music entertainment venues, because it all started with live stuff. And then when you get to present day today, for example, the Midwest, they have films as well as live entertainment throughout the year. So that's what we're going to talk about over the next several weeks. Hopefully everybody likes it.
I love the theater. Love the theater.
Awesome. Well, then you should love this whole series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure I will.
Okay. So we're going to start in Scottsbluff, and I just wanted to share this neat little tidbit that I haven't been able to fit anywhere else, but it kind of pertains to this. In 1907, a Chautauqua organization was formed, and it drew so many big crowds that the group ended up building a large beehive-shaped structure for their meetings on East Overland. And Chautauqua is basically, it is a form of entertainment, but it's usually folks dressed up in some kind of period costume, and they pretend to be that person that they're telling the story of. And then there's usually a Q&A after. And they're entertaining, but they're also highly informative and educational. And
kind of like what they do at the Legacy of the Plains today.
Yeah. And this past summer, we had talked about it after I went to the one Humanities Nebraska put on. It was a series of different things. So they usually kind of have some kind of overarching theme, but it's all different stories and lessons to learn. And they're neat to go to. I remember thinking that they were stupid when I first moved here in town, and there was one in 2013 as well. And I remember 13 or 14, I forget which. And I was just like, that sounds stupid. And it's because it wasn't explained to me properly what a Chautauqua was. And then when I found out what it was, oh man, I wish I had gone to that. But the way that it was explained to me, I'm like, that sounds really stupid. I don't want to go to that.
Oh yeah, and they're not stupid at all.
No.
I went to some in my youth, when I say youth, my teenage years, because because we did it for high school projects, anything that was around here, we would go to, and not just Chautauqua organizations, but powwows or anything like that. I was also part of Multicultural Club, so that was kind of like
that's awesome.
I loved it. So I don't think that's a club that exists anymore, actually.
I don't think so.
It was something that was very specifically designed by a very specific teacher, and after she left, I think it pretty much dissolved.
It kind of falls. So. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start with opera houses, which were the main entertainment venues in America from the end of the Civil War to around 1910, because you start getting the silent movies coming in. Scottsbluff actually had 2 opera houses, but there aren't many documents left of that time to accurately describe both. But thanks to some family members, I have a lot of information on the Marquis Opera House, the first of its kind in Scottsbluff. So that's my cat destroying things. Let me just pick that all up. We recently moved where we do the podcast, and
the cats are not happy.
Yeah, they're not happy. Things move, they want to investigate it, and they knock stuff over and scare themselves. So one of the things I learned is Louis Marquis's name is spelled Marquis, and we usually pronounce that as Marquis.
Yeah, I actually thought it was Marquis.
I was corrected by a family.
You said Marquis. I was saying Marquis.
And I was corrected by a family member how to say it correctly. So when the French-Canadian Louis Marquis, he was born on February 17th, 1855, and no one would have expected him to end up in the prairies of western Nebraska and settling in Scottsbluff. He arrived in Scottsbluff during the winter of 1889, and he came from Canada riding a horse. So I was never able to find out why'd you come from Canada in the winter on a horse.
Well, anything south's warmer, right?
I guess.
He's just migrating.
There you go. He's a Canadian migrating south.
Yeah, migrating south. He's fleeing the winter. It makes sense to me.
And when he arrived, no one ever thought that, this dude would help shape the fledgling city of Scottsbluff, but he did, and he left a huge mark in this town that a lot of people don't realize he's responsible for. So Louis had a vision for an opera block style of housing to help put the city on the map. He was a businessman and an entrepreneur who capitalized on the popularity of opera houses, and his vision was to build the Marquis Opera House and to take up the entire block. And if you've seen it, I know I list it later on, but it's on the corner of 16th and Broadway in Scottsbluff, and it does take up a good chunk of the block.
Yes, it does.
It's pretty dang big. As a little aside, I wanted to also note, because I really thank her for the extra information that she gave me, I met Arlene Germain Reitz. Crap. She would kill me, too, for getting her last name wrong. She is Marquis's granddaughter, and I also got to meet Carol Martin, his great-granddaughter, on a visit to Arlene's home in Colorado. Unfortunately, Arlene passed away this past summer. I believe she was 104 when she passed away.
Wow.
They had read that article that I wrote about all of the theaters in town, and Carol contacted me and wanted to know if I wanted to meet Arlene, and I was like, absolutely. I had no idea there was that close a living relative, because she could provide me with way more details and a couple of clarifications. They weren't really errors that I had in the story, but they needed more clarification because it wasn't completely well-defined, but it was as well-defined as I could find at the time. So I was very happy that she was able to read the article and then was like, hey, I can give you more info. So I am deeply indebted to the entire family for everything that they gave me and helped me with. And also, I wasn't getting paid to go do that story. We had planned to go down the Loveland on a Sunday, and I asked my editor, Bart, can I go and I interview this woman? And he's like, we're not paying you mileage. And I'm like, I didn't ask you for mileage. And he goes, Irene, we don't expect our reporters to drive 2 to 2.5 hours to do a story. And I go, you make us go up to Chadron to do stories.
Yeah, it's an hour up, hour back.
Yeah.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half each way. And I go, I'm going there anyway. Well, we're not paying you for working on Sunday. I'm like, I don't care, dude. This woman has more information. I'm going to be down there. It was literally like a 10-minute drive out of my way because we had already planned on going that weekend. And so I was able to go down, and Arlene gave me all kinds of info and some photos, which I forgot to pull out to show them to you today, but if we get switched to video, we'll have those.
Isn't that kind of funny how people around here, it's like, oh, 2 hours, that's way too far. But if you're from been in any major city, 2 hours is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. Like, that could just be afternoon rush hour.
Yeah.
And you can only be driving like 5 miles.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, and people make such a big deal about going out of your way.
Yeah. And whenever I went into New York City from my hometown, it's an hour and a half on the train. And just for example, when Paul and I had to go to immigration before he became a citizen, it took another good half an hour to get to the immigration building once the train got down, because it ended in Hoboken. You take the PATH train underneath the Hudson River, and then you get on the subway and go to the immigration facility. And so it was a good 2 hours each way. And we didn't think anything of it. You just go and you do it. And some people still they think it's too far. Then again, when I worked at the Star Herald, which is right on the north side of the train tracks, oh, you need to go to a car accident in Gearing. Oh, that's so far away. And I'm sitting there going, it's like a 2-minute drive, 3 minutes if you hit that light on.
You mean I have to cross the bridge? I don't want to cross the bridge.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to cross that bridge.
And I was always happy to go do it. I hated breaking news, but I was happy to do it because I'm out of the office for like an hour and a half. I'll take it. I'll go do it. Far away. It was like 1.5 miles away. Jeez. So Carol told me that her great-grandfather wasn't after the publicity of having an opera house. She told me he just had these things he wanted to do, and he did them. So it's kind of like me and you with the podcast. I told you, hey, I'd like to do a podcast one day. You and I had a conversation. You were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then I spent a week researching how much all this crap should cost and bought it, and now we have a podcast.
Years later, here we are.
Yeah. So Lewis built the Opera House between 1909 and 1910, and because he wanted the best for his new venue, he built a foundry for the bricks, which was located just east of where the Scottsbluff Airport is today. So it wasn't just that he's a businessman and an entrepreneur. He wants certain kinds of bricks, and he just thinks, well, I'll just build a foundry so I know I can get those kind of bricks.
And for those who don't know, that's what a foundry is. It's a place that makes bricks.
Yeah.
Not just, well, they can make other things, but in this context, it's bricks.
Yes. So also, we're going to skip ahead in time a little bit here. On October 10th, 1985, the building was put on the National Register of Historic Places, and I wanted to read the description of the building from the nomination form so that you can get an idea of what he wanted when he built this. The Opera House building is a 2-story brick Victorian building, visually giving the appearance of 3 stories. The lower level housed retail space, with the Opera House auditorium occupying the 2nd floor. In 1916, after the Opera House closed, the building was remodeled and a 3rd floor added internally. The Opera House auditorium, which featured a slanted floor and high ceiling, occupied what would be considered both the 2nd and 3rd floors. And I can tell you, having been in there, it does get a little confusing. Are we on the 2nd or the 3rd floor? Because it's all kind of technically 2 floors, but there's 3. And it's really hard to describe. And I was in that building once in 2014. So my memory's not as good as it used to be. So Arlene told me the Opera House could hold 600 people. And that was the one mistake that I had. I had been told by a couple of people it could hold 900, and she was like, no, it was 6. And that made more sense, because when I was there, I was thinking, how the heck do you get 1,000 people in here? And you didn't. It was off a little bit, but that's okay. 600 is still a lot of people.
Scottsbluff, yeah.
Yeah. When I toured the building, it was changed enough that I had a hard time imagining that many people. But the realtor who had let me in, and I'm sorry, I absolutely forget her name. If I saw her in town, I would remember who she was, but I just can't remember her name now. And I've been racking my brain for 3 weeks trying to remember her name for this podcast. She did an amazing job of explaining to me where everything originally was and where they were located, so that I could kind of see it and where the stage was. And it was really neat that she let me go in. At the time, she even told me that it was beneficial for her too, because at the time the building was up for rent, and she figured, free publicity. People might have wanted to relocate downtown and didn't know that it was available for rent. And, I made sure I put that in my story just as a kind of thank you for letting me go roof to basement on this building, in this building. So my visit with Arlene also cleared up some things for me, as she explained how there was a curtain room and an elaborate tin tile ceiling, and how it was all organized to fit so many people. And around that time, tin tile ceilings were very, very popular. And there were more than one building in downtown Scottsbluff that had tin tile ceilings. Yeah,
you saw them almost in every saloon or bar that was considered fancy.
Yep.
And it helped keep, it helped because you could still smoke in establishments like that. So that tin tile helped it from turning a different funky color.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and it was pretty. I still like tin tiles.
I thought they looked cool, the ones I've seen. Yeah.
It has especially they do the little filigree on the sides, kind of make it a little Victorian look.
So yeah, they look neat. I'm not sure if I know you could see them in one part in the Opera House. I just don't know if I have photos of it. So if you ever get a chance to look up tin tile ceilings or see them in person, they are very neat to see. So during this tour, she's telling me everything about the building, and then she asked me, would you like to see the roof? And absolutely. I'm never going to get in this building again, and It has been 11 years since I've been in that building. So yes, I want to go on the roof and see the building. And then she asked me if I was afraid of birds or bats. Nope, not afraid of them at all. I even, as a young child, we had a bat get in my grandma's house, and it landed on my head, and I started to try and get it off. I wasn't freaking out, but I could feel its feet kind of clench around my hair, and I have curly hair, so I just hollered to my grandma, and she came upstairs because we were supposed to be getting the bat out the window, not in my hair, and I just asked her what to do, and she said, give me a minute. She went downstairs, got the broom, and she just kind of poked it a little bit till it loosened its grip on me, and then we directed it toward the window and got it out. But the bat was freaked out as much as any human would be. And I think because I didn't panic, I didn't have clumps of hair torn out. It just kind of chilled there till my grandma was like slowly pushing it off my head.
And bats are interesting because they have to be up in a high place to start flying. They're not like birds. They can't flap from the ground. So if they're on the ground and you see one, it's the nicest thing you can do is pick it up and throw it. Get them that lift that they need to get back up, because they just can't. They're not like birds. They can't just get up. They have to crawl towards a tree or something, get some height, let go, and then kind of do the glide thing to get to where they need to go.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
I only know that because we used to do bat fishing near our lodges when I was a kid.
Okay.
We'd take some tin foil with a bat and a fishing rod, and at night you just wave the tin foil around and make that noise. And the bats would be attracted to that scuffling noise. And you'd flick it, and then you'd go down to the ground with it, and the bat would follow it and hit the ground. And then you could take it and capture it and move it.
Okay.
And that's how you'd relocate bats.
I had no idea.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. We call it bat fishing, but yeah.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's how you relocate the bats.
Yeah. And we pushed it out the window, and out that set of 2 windows at my grandma's house, you open the window and it's just like a 50-foot straight drop from the second floor to the ground. So yeah, we pushed it out the window and it just went off. Neat. So yeah, I'm not afraid of birds or bats. And now think about this. This lady had a cream colored outfit on. The skirt went down just above her knees, like maybe a quarter of an inch above her knees. She had these... Just
like, almost like a typical realtor.
Yes.
Realtors always dress really nice.
Yes. She had, I'm guessing, 3-inch heels on. I mean, she was dressed to the nines, and she looked really, really nice. So keep that image in your head for the rest of this part of the story. So we had to go through this room with no lighting, but you could see a little bit of light on the other side of the room, and it's because that room was old enough and not well cared for that, the outside could be seen, just like what happens in old buildings where not everything's 100% sorted. And there's no electricity, so we're walking across the room and, crunch, 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 crunch. And my thought is, oh my God, am I walking on dead birds and bats? So we get over there and she unlocks the padlock. Because again, when I say there was a little bit of light, there was a hole about the size, a round hole about the size of a cap for a water bottle, and then a slight vertical bit that I could maybe stick my fingers through, like the size of my 4 fingers. I wouldn't have been able to get my thumb through it. And that was it. That was the light we were heading towards. So we open the door and I step out on the roof and I look back. And there's a nice layer of poop. And that's what we were walking on. Did not affect this lady whatsoever. She was just like crunch, crunch, crunch. And then we walked out on the roof together and she's telling me it was an absolutely gorgeous view to be up there. And, it was spectacular. And I would absolutely love to go up there again. If the opportunity ever arose, I would say, yes, please, take me back. And I could have stayed there all day, but I was doing a story, so I was only out there about 10 minutes. And I still could have stayed longer, and she was like, well, shall we go back and look at the apartment? I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for a story, not to chill out on the roof of the Opera House. And I still call it the Opera House today. We'll get to what people call it today. Because my friend I ran into at the grocery store, I was telling her about the Opera House. And she was like, where is that? And then when I told her, oh, it's also known as the Flynn Building, she was like, oh, okay. So she knew what it was because everybody in town knows it as the Flynn Building. To me, it's the Opera House. It was built as an opera house. I don't care that Mr. Flynn built it and put his name on it, and you can still read the word Flynn on it. It's the Opera House. So many folks today know the Marquis Opera House as the Flynn Building. And If you look on the south side of the building, you can see the faded Flynn on the side of it. After the Opera House closed, Wade Flynn purchased the building and put his name on it. And we'll get back to that in a little bit when we get through the timeline to where it goes. I don't want to... I'm trying to keep this in chronological order because it gets confusing if you get too out of order with things. But just know that it's going to be sold to Wade Flynn, and his name should not be on the building. It's the Opera House. That's my opinion. So the Legacy of the Plains has a small abstract about the place titled The Marquis Opera House, written by Florence Dyer. And she wrote in this, and I call it an abstract because it's only a few pages long. To me, that's an abstract, not a full diatribe about the whole building. But she wrote, Lewis's temper was certainly no asset, and it is documented several times in the newspaper. She found Star Herald articles from 1912, which had documented Lewis's arrest for assault, as well as an article in September 1914, which noted he escaped serious injury when his horse and wagon turned over on Broadway because of excessive speed. So I like Lewis, you know. I got no issues with speeding, and I kind of want to know what it looks like.
His horses were drunk.
Yeah, they were drunk too.
No, he was sober. He was sober, just his horses.
Yeah, just his horses were drunk.
I think we could get away with that blame.
Yeah.
Back then. Oh, seriously, it wasn't me, it was my horses. I don't know what they got into.
So people at the time gossiped about his driving skills and personal problems, and, you know, in that sense, not much has changed today. You know, we still see people gossiping about other people's problems. I had this happen more often when I worked at the Star Herald, but I'm thinking of one person in particular would catch up with me on how things were going. And then it took about 7 to 10 days for it to get back to me. And you do the whole thing of, I'm telling this person this one specific thing, and I haven't mentioned it to anyone else. And in like 7 to 10 days, I'd have 2 or 3 people tell me. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, you know who you can and can't gossip with. And, you know, I would think it's probably a little easier to do that back in, you know, the early 1900s when there are fewer people here. And
well, maybe but you have the small town effect. I mean, you go up to Harrison, you can see that right away. Everybody knows everybody, and not all there is to do is gossip.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. I don't know if I could handle living there.
You're always peeking over the windowsill, wondering what your neighbors are doing. And whenever I come in, it's only more recently that me and my husband can go up there and not get stared down.
Really?
Because now everybody knows our car, more importantly, not just
it's not. Okay.
Because if you're outside of town, everybody knows your car. So it's like that. Who's that car? Like, that car don't belong here. It's like everybody knows everybody. So yeah, that small town gossip. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's almost sometimes worse than social media.
Yes, I don't think I could live in a town as small as Harrison. Here, in Scottsbluff, there's about 15,000 people in town, and it provides enough anonymity.
It does. If you want to be left alone, everybody doesn't know everybody here, so that kind of helps. Yeah. Plenty of friends to make, plenty of enemies to make and avoid.
Yes. So, you know, things have changed and things have stayed the same. Anyway, the Opera House was built for traveling shows and acts that were popular, including vaudeville shows. And do you want to describe what a vaudeville show is, Connor?
I was actually going to ask you what would be a good definition of vaudeville
for today.
Because it's not slapstick, although that could be a part of it.
But they are live action. They're more than plays, but not quite on the level of like a full featured film, because they're shorter skits.
Yeah, they're almost like one acts.
Yeah,
little one act plays that they do, but they're they're often comical, right?
Yeah.
Kind of over the top. Mm-hmm. And like I said, a lot of it, people say slapstick comedy now because it's what a lot of that was a lot of like people stepping on a rake and the rake goes and hits you in the face kind of thing. Or,
and I think slapstick became highly developed because of vaudeville as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they kind of like bled into each other.
Yeah, I guess if you guys want a good example of vaudeville actors, if you watch the original Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, at least those two. I don't know about the Tin Man, but the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion for sure worked vaudeville. They were vaudeville actors.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you an idea of their silliness and what their how they moved and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, look it up, folks. I forgot to define it well. And that's a mistake on my part because I know what a vaudeville show is when I see one. And then I was thinking,
I guess that's kind of me. Yeah. You know it when you see it.
Yeah. So Arlene told me that her mother said only about 3 traveling acts ever performed there. So he wasn't that successful at getting people in. It's a great idea. But they did do local stuff. It was just getting the traveling folks to come here. Mm-hmm. And we do that at the Midwest now. And I would think, I'm not sure, but, you know, the Midwest isn't open every day. And when folks do come, it's, you know, either 1, 2, or 3 nights. And so it manages to stay open with that, but it'd be neat if it was there all the time. You'd have something to go to. So it was still hard even then to get the acts out here. And given the fact that they probably would have had to come by train at that point in time, it probably wasn't an easy feat to do. So according to Lillis Grasmick, who was the former curator for the North Platte Valley Museum in Gearing, Lewis later started a regular motion picture theater in the Opera House. In addition to movies, it hosted dances, plays, and other vaudeville acts. Lillis had told me in a 2016 interview, "My mother's cousin's little girl went with my father to see the play St. Elmo's Fire there. Little short films and lantern slides were shown there." So I was shocked by that, you know, when I think of St. Elmo's Fire, I think of the movie from the mid-'80s. Mm-hmm. I completely forgot how old that screenplay actually was. And then lantern slides are literally that. You had lanterns, and they put these little slides in it that projected on the wall, and you could turn them and change the slides, and it would tell a little
that
story.
Kind of ripple,
yeah. And they're neat if you ever see them, and they're kind of precursors to what we got with motion pictures. Lewis also opened his opera house to other entertainment and meetings. I cannot read today. I don't think I can read any day when we do this, because I get up, I take a shower, I eat breakfast, and then you're here. So I don't think I'm ever fully awake when we do this. Yeah. Oh. Musicians regularly played at the Opera House, and in 1913 there was a scandal afoot as folks met there to discuss a current controversy. Dyer wrote, "The summer proved inactive for the Opera House, with the exception of a union meeting to protest the different Christian societies in the town who were against the proposition of Sunday baseball."
I mean, that is a big deal around here.
Yeah.
You know, go to church baseball, go to church baseball.
Can't give students homework on Wednesdays because there's youth group. That was the craziest thing.
I was okay with that as a kid. Yeah. Like, sure.
I worked down in Gearing at the junior high, and that was one of the craziest things when I moved here. I'm like, what? Youth group starts at 7, school's over at 3:30. They can do an hour of homework in that time. What?
Give you a lot of Bible work, too, though, in those youth groups.
Yep. So what would happen on Wednesday with this one teacher, and I'm not going to name her, but I loved her for doing this. Every Wednesday, you got a pile of homework that was due on Friday. So you got Wednesday night homework. You just did it all on Thursday because it was due Friday. And you got 2 days worth of homework. She thought the rule was stupid too, but, you know, you got to play the game when you're in there. Totally. Londo just totally jumped when you coughed. It's okay, Londo. You can't catch his cold. I could. I'm not going to because I'm too awesome to catch colds. So the Eagle Cafe, which we will get a story on eventually, that was a big cafe in town for a very, very long time, and it's connected with the Japanese, and that's why I haven't done it yet, because I want to tie it in with that when we get to it. But the Eagle Cafe and Platte Valley State Bank were on the first floor, which served as retail space during its entire existence. And if you go there today, I don't know the name of the tattoo shop, but there's a tattoo shop there. The first floor, when I moved here, also had a wasn't yoga, some kind of dancing, like Jane Fonda dance.
Okay. Take your word for it.
Kind of stuff. It was there, and it disappeared early on in COVID and never came back. But there is a tattoo shop in there now, so it still has retail folks in there. So I'm going to read again from the Star Herald article I wrote, because it's stupid to rewrite what you already wrote. Strolling from the second floor of the Opera House in 2016 reveals much of its original construction. Doors with their frosted glass windows and detailed wood still hang on their hinges. Inside the offices, piping and remnants of piping remain. Sorry, that's a mouthful. Each office had piping for sinks, so that was something that was new at the time. You didn't just have like a central area for that kind of stuff. Every room had, not every room, most offices had their own sinks and stuff. Each office, there are double doors on the south side of the building. Doorbells painted over and no longer working used to ring to each apartment upstairs. Everyone had their own utilities and hot water. A careful eye can spot the bolts for the supports on the roof on the third floor. A service elevator shaft, now sealed, once brought equipment and props up to the top floor for the show. The hand-operated freight elevator is no longer there. Neither is the elevator that was on the north side of the building. It only went from the basement to the third floor. Stagehands and the help stayed in the basement. So did the stage equipment. The elevator allowed people and equipment to traverse the building without being seen. Part of the building was also allocated to rooms where the actors could stay. The heavy beams and tin roofing are still visible. A large walk-in metal safe enclosed in iron bars is no longer on the second floor, but there are enough remnants that a person can picture it using their imagination. The mezzanine for the Opera House was fully open. A large center stairway was the entrance for opera goers, and that center, the realtor showed me where those stairs were, and it's just been sealed up there at the top. And I just thought the elevator thing was really neat, that all the crap for the show was in the basement, and that elevator just went from the basement to the third floor as they needed whatever props and whatever people needed to get up there for their next bit. God, if I was like a billionaire, one, I wouldn't be a jerk like most of them are, but I would probably redo that. And fix the Opera House back to the way that it was, just because I would be a billionaire and I would have the money to do that. So Lewis and members of his family lived in the back of the Opera House. If you ever get to go inside the building, there is a heavy fire door that marks the entrance to Lewis's apartment on the second floor, and it's heavy. It's heavy. The realtor and I were like, trying to open it. Yeah, naturally, though, Connor will probably just go open it with 2 fingers. Be like, this isn't heavy. But it made sense to have it there in case of fire, which was much more of a danger than I guess today. And, you know, there's no sprinklers. So he's putting that door up to protect his family. The apartment was added after completion of the original building. And his daughter, Greta, Marquis Hoyt, and Arlene's mother lived there. And in turn, Arlene lived there too. Greta worked at the Eagle Cafe for several years. Arlene was living in the Opera House when Louis died. He had some debts that needed to be paid, and she was forced to move out shortly after, as the building was going to be sold, and, you know, her being able to stay there wasn't an option. So in 1916, stucco was added over the brick, and the third floor was built inside during a remodeling project, and that third floor was often empty. Arlene told me toward the end of his life, Louis fell on some financially hard times, and Wade Flynn purchased the building in 1936. He opened the second floor to offices for apartments, dentists, and lawyers. I just heard the heat kick on, so sorry, folks. I thought I could keep it off long enough till we were done. Y'all can just deal with it because I'm not freezing. It's cold outside. It's December. There was also an insurance agent in the building. The third floor remained mostly vacant even after Wade Flynn purchased it. I remember seeing a sign for a lawyer hanging outside the building until around 2010 or 11. I don't remember when it went away, but it was damaged in a hailstorm, and it's not hanging out there anymore. The little half-moon canopies are constantly getting damaged during storms here as well. And I don't know if those have an official name. Do you know what I mean? Those little half-moon canopy things out front?
That's a pretty good description of them. And they constantly get damaged. I'm surprised that no one is either taking them down or making them solid. Because they're like cloth.
Yes.
I'm like, why don't you just do something like that in concrete?
Yeah, because I believe because it's on the historic register, they have to keep it the way that it is. But I think they can make something solid. It would just have to be the same design and the same color. Mm-hmm. And I did notice that after the last hailstorm we got, they haven't fixed it yet. It's just the skeleton of the little canopies. And I would imagine they're not cheap, and they take a while to get remade and put back up. But yeah, hail sucks around here. You see it all the time, and the thing that bothers me is that if people didn't realize how much hail we get here, they would think that people don't give a crap about their town with the broken business signs and stuff, but they take time to fix. And
they do.
And then you put them back up, and then another hailstorm hits it. So yeah, if it was me, I would just have a bunch of wood painted signs, and
just go back.
Yep.
Go back.
Yep. And then you don't ever have to worry about it again. Anyway, Flynn also continued to rent the first floor. The Eagle Cafe was still there, and the first floor also housed a bank, Nebraska Securities, and a watch repair shop. So I think you could still get 3 businesses out of that place. But when I toured Jazzercise, that's what it was called.
Jazzercise.
When I toured the Jazzercise place, they were occupying like 2 different businesses. Mm-hmm. And I think, I forget what that one business is that's in there besides the tattoo shop. I don't think anybody's in that third little section, which was, I think, where the watch repair shop was. Anyway, Talman's Jewelers were in the building from 1948 to 1998. And as a side note, Talman's Jewelers ended up moving a block north next to Cappuccino and Company, except for it wasn't Cappuccino and Company at the time they moved up there. But they were on the corner of 17th and Broadway, and they just closed this summer. And the only thing I can think of is Talman's Jewelers has passed down through the generations. I know the gentleman who was in charge of it now, and he has 2 daughters who have no interest in the jewelry business. And he's a few years older than me, so I think he was just nearing retirement, and he just was like, this is it, I'm done. And they were able to do okay, and I think COVID kind of hit them. So it's better to close up now before you go too far in debt. But I actually was in the school district with two of his daughters, and I know his oldest daughter. I did know her fairly well, and she's not a jewelry type person. And she's an absolutely lovely young lady, but she's not someone who would want to run a jewelry business, and that's okay. That's all right. So George Tallman and his sons Bill and Jerry had their shop on the first floor of the Opera House after they bought the building. A new staircase was built to access the second floor as an attempt was made to expand and use more of the empty space. I can't number here. Yeah, I don't know how to number, Connor. I screwed up numbering on mine. So it was used as more of an empty space in the building. The Tallmans sold things like crystal, kitchen items, clocks, flatware, bridal items, and silver on the second floor. So they owned the building, and they kind of expanded like a little general store type of thing, which was common before we got our big box stores coming into town, and then now online crap. So Michael Tallman, Bill's son, told me that he remembered hand polishing the silver for sale. And we had a little laugh about that because of course you did. You were the kid, and they were like, here, go do this job that nobody else wants to do. Because I got stuck polishing my grandma's stuff when I was little too. I didn't want to do it, but it was a job my grandma gave me, and I got 25 cents for doing it. And to me, I was rich. Yep,
gotta polish that silverware.
Yep. So Michael told me I also had to clean out the dentist's office. He was a bit of a hoarder, and there were all kinds of things left in there. That would suck, Okay, not only do I got to do this stuff for my dad, now I got to clean this dentist's office, and he's got all kinds of crap that I think is crap that needs to be thrown out, but he's a hoarder, so I can't throw it out. Ugh. So Arlene said she remembered Dr. Berkeley, a local dentist, had an apartment on the second floor as well. I honestly have never looked up Dr. Berkeley to see, there's lots of dentists that come and go. Anyway, Bill and Jerry Tallman bought the building in 1979. The Tallmans, so they bought it from their dad. The Tallmans were instrumental in turning in the application to get the building listed on the historic register. And at the time, there were plans to remodel the upper floors, but funds couldn't be raised to make it happen. At some point in time, Bill sold his half of the building to Jerry, and the building is still known as the Flynn Building all around town. I call it the Opera House because to me, when I saw the building and I wanted to learn about the building, I learned that it was an opera house. I saw the name Flynn, and I assumed someone named Flynn owned the building. And when I went down to the Legacy of the Plains to do some research, one of the ladies was like, oh, that's the Opera House. I'm like, oh, yeah. Tell me all about that. So for me, it's always been the Opera House. And it's because I didn't grow up here. So I didn't even...
So some people around here still call it like the old Opera House and stuff like that. People who know.
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite stories, partly because I was able to go throughout the whole building, and that's just the cool, like I'm 10 years old and I got to do this cool thing experience, but I also got to meet Arlene and her daughter Carol, and that was an awesome experience that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't done a story like that. So it's always going to be Lewis's Opera House for me. So Lewis also didn't just run the Opera House. He had many businesses in town, including the brickyards and a lumber yard. So with his Opera House, even though it wasn't as successful as he wanted it to be, he had other businesses in town that helped to grow the city and kind of make it what it is today. He's not 100%, responsible for Scottsbluff, being on the map, but he kind of did get it on the map with his opera house. So Lewis died on October 24th, 1938 at age 83, and he's buried in the Fairview Cemetery in Scottsbluff. And I just wanted to mention as well, Arlene passed away on March 10th, 2025, and she is buried in the West Lawn Cemetery in Gearing. And for me, it really, truly was an honor to meet her. For her to reach out and say, would you like to know more? Would you like to come to my house? And I can tell you a bit more of my family history. And then to go down and spend a few hours in her house. It had a huge impact on me. I'm sitting at her kitchen table and she's pulling out these pictures that I had never seen that I ended up using in that article. That I wrote a follow-up article about the Opera House. And it was just neat to sit there and listen to her share stories about her grandfather and early Scottsbluff and about the things that he built and what he meant to her. Those, regardless of whether it's someone you're writing a story for work, or, you just run into somebody who's, in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're telling you about a family member or someone that had a huge impact on their life. It means a lot to them that they're sharing it with you. And you never know where that's going to lead. To me, it led to this podcast episode eventually. And one of the neat things about being a journalist is getting to tell all these awesome stories and getting to meet the people behind them. And it doesn't happen often because, a lot of people don't tell the stories of long ago. And when you are able to hear them, you should remember them, pass them on, tell them. And that's part of what I'm doing today with that, because at some point in time, I'm going to be gone. And hopefully someone hears this story and, the Opera House building is still standing in 100 years. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, Irene and Connor sat down and told us everything that had happened here. So there is one thing that sticks with me that Arlene told me. She said, I lived there pretty much all my life up to when I was married in 1938. It tugs at my heart every time I go by. And it still tugs at my heart when I drive up and down Broadway. I always look at the Opera House building and I think of Arlene. I don't think as much of Lewis because, Lewis was long dead by the time I did the story, but I got to meet Arlene. And so every time I go up and down Broadway, I think of Arlene. And, I think a little bit more about the building. There's probably still more historical stuff out there that I didn't find. I do think about her grandfather, and I think about the lovely memories that she had growing up in the Opera House. And that's going to happen every single time I drive up and down Broadway. That's the kind of impact that she had on me, and I wanted to share with other people. So the Marquis Opera House coexisted with many movie theaters until it closed in 1916. And we're going to discuss those in a future episode in this series on theaters, on storytelling on the plains. But today, that's partly the history of the Opera House, as well as some of my memories that I was able to share as part of retelling the whole story of the Opera House. And we are going to tell the other stories, but this is my favorite one just because I have such a personal connection to it now that I never thought that I would. So that's it for us this time. We'll be back next time. We're going to talk about the Nile Theater in Mitchell and what's going on with it today and hopefully its future. And come back next time and we'll tell you all about that. For now, I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.